In this video I'm going to talk about making a little animation, also known as a flip book animation. So you'll have your character in 4 poses, but these poses are tied together to make some kind of movement. And this is going to be like a little title animation. As you can see, I've made a fancy title called Example Man, and it just goes through the different phases of the little 4-frame animation. And later, once you've made these, you take photographs and then you use something called GIF Maker online, and I'll put a link to that in the description. Basically, you want to get an A4 bit paper, fold it in half, just line up those corners right, hold it there, and pull it like that, and from that point get your finger and your nail and just really kind of pull that across like that. Same the other side. Now just double check it's straight. Still, I think I made a bit of a mess of that, and then just pull it tight to the end to realign that, and then just pull that again. Okay, and also go down the way now. I'm just using like this bit of my thumb. You see I've got decent nails. If you don't have any nails, you can put it flat down and use like a hard edge of a ruler or a comb or something. Right, this is going to give you 4 equal parts, and all you want to do then is just start a little tear at the top and just pull them apart, and be careful with that bit. Just be careful with that bit. Tear it and then just do it bit by bit. Alright. A bit of a tear to start it, and then start to pull it, you know, like that, bit by bit. Just slowly. Okay, so you've got those 4 pieces, right? And you want to kind of make a stickman figure. So if you've got pencils, use pencils. If you've only got pens like me, then start very lightly. Now I'm just going to draw the first frame of my character. Let's say I want to do something like a high kick. So you're going to have an idle stance, a kind of pushing the weight backwards pose, because you're going to use that for force, right? So that's the anticipation. There'll be a point that goes before the kick and then the actual kick. Or the actual kick, then a kind of return pose. But so what we'll do is I'll do a kind of blobby figure, and if you remember when we did the poses using the different parts, if you want to draw with those parts in mind to start with, and remember you've got bits that will overlap other bits, and you'll end up with something a little bit like this guy. So everything's made of really simple shapes, and when I draw, I just draw with circles, kind of very loosely like this. So if you've got each pose now, you can go over those poses a little bit heavier so that they're easier to trace. And just think of this as the template, right? You're not actually going to use this as your final. This is just to work out poses, and you're drawing very loose to start with, but we need to lean heavy so that when we trace it, we can actually see. Right, so I've gone over that quite heavy, and then I'll swap that out for, basically I'm going to trace over that, and you can see through it. And just line it up so the paper's right at the edge, so that when we do take photographs of it, you know, we're taking pictures of the full page, not just focused on the character. Right, so I've got them like that, and maybe I want to pull the hips back but keep that leg rounded. Right, so my first stage is, if you can see through it, you can see how I've kept that foot there on the ground because all his weight has gone onto that foot. Pulled the hips over because he's leaning back, and maybe I want to pull the knee up in the air, pull it back and do the foot kind of pointing down like this. See that? Right, so he's kind of sort of not stepped back, but lifted one leg up and putting all the weight on that one side, his back leg. And I just want to move the hips. So this is just a guide, you know, this gives me a good idea of where everything's supposed to go. And this is a good starting point for any kind of animation stuff. Right, so again, very simple parts, and I can see already that if I was to kind of flip this, he's leaning back onto that foot. He's standing there, idle pose, leaning back, getting ready to kick, and then I can lean heavier with this one. No matter what your pose is, you want to plan it out with a really simple shape. Right, so I've leaned a bit heavier with that. Now we get another bit of paper and put it over that one. Make sure it's lined up. Okay, so we know these pages are equal sizes, and I can see through that one. Now, because he's leaning back, I could do like a 2-frame where he leans back further, then I kick that way. It kind of slows down that part where he's standing, pulling his leg up a wee bit more, and then big snap kick, right? That will give it more motion, so I'll make him lean even more. I'm going to pull his foot out as if he's had to twist his ankle out to catch more of the weight, and I'll let him kind of fall a little bit more to that side. So last time, if you see through it, I've pulled his hips this way a bit. So there's his hips before, and then I pulled him this way a wee bit, and I've pulled this foot round. Okay, and then I can move his chest. Just need to think about the balance each time. Is he balanced like this? And I'm moving the arm out to give it a bit more of an effect. And I'll keep one arm a bit more sturdy because it's a deliberate motion. And bring that. Now not all parts will match because they're connected to the hips, and if the hips have moved, all those bits connected to the hips will also move. They're not going to be somehow stretching out the blue, so you can see how before behind this the ghost figure there, and I put him back the way, so he's doing a small motion. You see how I've moved the arm out as well for a little bit of an effect, and that's just going to help give a bit more interest to it. Right, so once I've done enough of that, I can move on to the last frame. So again, I'll just line them up. So I've got basically that ready to trace, but this is going to be, when I snap this right out this way, I'm really going to push his body forward. So the main thing I want to be right is the foot is still going to be planted, right? Maybe a different shape with the foot. So the foot at first was a bit of a long shape because I want it to be like it's completely side on view of the foot. But as he's kicked it, he's rotated his foot round and give him more balance towards the front. So now I can pull his knee out, really move his hips over to that side. Right, I'm just going to put his leg way up in the air, the one for the knee, and just think about the shape that the foot makes. What side of the foot am I seeing? And basically I'm seeing this, right? I do this little triangle with a point in it because the foot is pointing directly towards us, and you see with the one before, basically for that foot, I've got it side on. It's giving it a lot of kind of motion between side and front, right? So now I can really rotate the whole thing forward, you know, bring the hole for the shoulders round. and end up with a shape like that. That's not the head, by the way, that's the torso and the little socket for the arms. I'm just making these nice shapes and connecting it all up so I end up with that kind of thing. Right, so you can see now the motion. It's going to snap. Right, so I've got a little kicking guy. Basically the four frames are standing, pulling the leg up, leg back a bit more, then the kick, right? And these are going to be my template. I can refine things a bit now. I want to compare the first and the last frame because you can see I've lost a lot of volume. This guy here is very chunky and this guy got very skinny, so I just want to tidy those up a little bit. So I'll quickly just match some scaling a bit better. I'm just going to go over those areas a bit more. Now these are just going to be traced, not my final drawing. This is my guide guy. Make sure, yeah, that end guy also needs a lot more beef. Yeah, I'm just being really loose, just scribbling. This isn't the final drawing yet, but basically I've just added a little bit more volume to these two. Right, and now that I've done that, I can start afresh. So I've got my animation, you know, template. Right, I can start afresh. I can pick up another sheet, fold it over, use the finger and the thumbnail to really crease that edge, right? And to make it easier. Don't tear it just yet because we're going to use that to get these two bits. Just make sure that's right to the edge there and down a bit. Okay. Then use the finger and thumb nail and open it up. It's easier to tear one layer of paper than it is to tear two, so just very gently just pulling it apart like that, and here, and this one, just the start, and then it should be as simple as that. If you want, you can also wet the edge a bit and it tears much easier. You know, look at like a stamp or like that kind of thing, just dip your finger in water and just run it across the edge, let it sit for about 10 seconds and it will just tear really easily. Right, so I've got 4 equal parts and I want to trace each of these now, but use these just as templates. These no longer matter so much other than them being a base shape. So we'll start with the first one. So that was this guy. And then I can trace over it with a design. Whatever your character's design is so far, use that. Or, you know, make a whole new design. If you've not come up with a design yet, this might be a good way to work something out. So I'm just going to make a little karate sort of guy. And I'm really just making some shapes, you know, like this. So I'm tracing over, but I'm making much more interesting looking character. And this is going to be a little opening sequence to your character reel. So you want this to look cool. And we're going to add a title to the top as well. And you can make the title dance around. You can make it come into view, move, change shade, all sorts of stuff like that. Now it would take a little while to put this together properly, but think of this as a good dry run to making your own animated character, and it really helps you towards doing proper poses. Right, I can't quite see through it. You can't quite see through it. It's a good idea to maybe get like something made of plastic, or use a bit of glass, like from a glass frame, you know, a picture frame, take the glass out of it and put a lamp underneath and basically have a light box, or put an application on your phone that's just got a white background and use that as a light box, or if you have a light box, use that, or use your screen, make the background white and use your screen. Yeah, so the thinner the paper the better, but I'm using printer paper here and it's not too bad. So I don't know quite what this guy is wearing, because I've not really come up with a design properly just yet. But I'll add something at least. Let's give him kind of tank top or something like that. Right, you can spend a long time on these, but there is, let's do a little bit of ground shadow actually, that will really help when it comes to doing the kick and stuff. But there's a little guy based on that little guy. Now I did mess up the arm a little bit. I think that needs a little bit of work, so I'll just make that. I'm just gonna, I don't have an eraser, plus I'm using a pen. But try and make it look like his hand is kind of like in front of his arm, so you don't really see the arm. And I might have to like trace it again to make all these changes and improvements. So I can keep going with this and refine it again and again. But so that's that pose, and basically I'm gonna put that aside. That'll be like my reference, or in your case it will be your actual character. Right, I'm gonna get the second pose for the animation. Now these are keyframes, if you like. I'm just gonna put a fresh bit of paper over that and make sure I trace the design. Now I could also put that guy behind it, but I can't actually see that far through. So I'm just gonna have to really eyeball it and work out whatever it looks like. So this is where it gets a little bit more time consuming, thinking about how things move, especially those straps on his head. I'm going to also move his hair a little bit forward, because his head's moving back and his hair is looser, so it takes a little bit longer to follow, and it's a bit of a more dynamic thing. Just do some shapes. I'm going to drink my tea because it gets cold. That's right. Can't quite see through this, so I'm just going to hold it up to the light. That's another option. And I failed to overlap the leg at first, so I need to do a bit more pre-planning. Make sure I know what I'm going to make beforehand. He's got these kind of kneecaps on, knee guards. Right, so jolly looking second frame. As the first frame, it's got a little bit more detail than this one, but I can always like go over it all again. I don't necessarily have to trace it all again, but I can at least add a bit of shading and detail work to balance it all out. So next frame, not too far off that one, so I'll just use that as reference. I know where the head's going to be. Just give him a little bit of the mouth open, get the headband, let's whip these round a bit. something a little different with the hair. Just double check the pose I'm trying to make, because I do get a little bit carried away and forget what I'm doing. But double check everything. I've got clues there. You know, if you've made some clues for yourself, you might as well use them. I'm just flicking and double checking. Okay, and there is my third frame. Yeah, it looks kind of weird when his leg is up in the air like that, but it's just to give you an idea. You can make yours like way better than mine. I'm just rushing this through to show you what you can get done with a little bit of time, but you've got way more time than this. So ideally you spend a good 25 minutes planning out your action. You can stand up and think about what you're going to make. You can, you know, find some cool reference poses that you want to animate. Watch any reference videos. Eventually you want to make your character look cool and animated. Make sound effects. Yeah. Right, I'll do a little bit of ground shadow for each of these. So yeah, I can go back over each frame and add a bit more detail. But here's what I managed to rush out. And this time, again, you got way more time in this, a couple hours to do all these, add shading and detail in your title. But basically, standing, and then, okay, great. So, here we go. So I've got the standing. Anticipation 1, getting ready, shifting the weight to the back leg, and then pushing all that weight out. And what I'll do now is I'm going to use something called GIF Maker Online. So I'll take some photos of these, upload them to GIF Maker Online, and I'll download a GIF, and I'll play that just a second. Okay, so here's what we ended up with the Karate Kick guy. Now, even though there's no title in this one, you get the idea. Now, I played around with the time that it held on each frame. That's something that you can do through GIF Maker quite easily. I did my best to crop the images as well, just to make sure that the character kind of stayed in the right place. And this one here is the example. Also, I changed the duration of each frame. So the start frame with the idle pose there, I held that for about a second. Then each other frame was about, I don't know, 0.2 of a second. And then the last frame I held for a bit longer. And it gives it a bit more drama. So you don't have to have each frame the same timing. You can override those values. And that's the result. And as you can see, I've added a title as well, which is part of the brief. So in the end, you're going to end up with your animation, at least 4 frames with a title. If you need to add more frames, you know how to make those. You just tear up more bits of paper the same size, take photos of those and composite those using GIF Maker. So good luck with that, and I look forward to seeing what you make. Bye for now.